Velkommen og god dag alle sammen. Today we are speaking about just the sources that we have on Seidr. So this is going to be a quick video about everywhere that you can read about Seidr because we really don't know a lot about it, and as usual there are a lot of idiots talking about magic, and even a lot of these people are writing books and they're just making stuff up, really. They're not using any of the historical evidence that we have about it. So if you want to speak about Seidr, you have to have a little bit of background on the historical sources. You need to have a little bit of background on Old Norse sources and history. You can't just write about magic and make things up like that, like a lot of people are doing. And trust me, I have wasted a lot of money buying some of these books that are absolute garbage. So this is so you guys don't have to buy the books. So this is so you can just go directly to the sources yourself and read about Seidr and make up your own opinions and see what you think it is and how to practice it. So I'm going to go over them really quickly, not getting into too much depth, but telling you where you can find it. First, the Eddas. Prose Edda. There are a lot of mentions of Seidr in the Prose Edda, but the best account is in Ynglinga Saga. Here we found out what Seidr can do. It can predict fate and things that were yet to come. It could cause people death or bad health. It could make someone stupid or weak and give their strength and intelligence to someone else. And of course, it can be used for divination and giving prophecies and things like that, like we know about all the other things that the Völva do. And it also speaks about the origin of Seidr and where Odin learned it from. So that's the Prose Edda. The Poetic Edda, there are a few places also here that have mention of Seidr and how the Völva practiced it, but it was best accounted in Lokasenna. This is the most detailed account, really, which is basically just a poem of Loki talking shit, pretty much. So here Loki shames Freya and tells how she is kind of a cursed woman for practicing Seidr, and he also makes fun of Odin for practicing Seidr and speaks about it a bit more. That's the Poetic Edda. Then we'll go on to the sagas. Saga of Gisli Surson. This one is actually an account of a man doing Seidr, which is one of the only ones that we have. That's in the Saga of Gisli Surson. Next one is Rolf Kraki's saga. This one gives account of a woman practicing Seidr and also goes into pretty good detail there. Number 5 is Erik the Red's saga. This one is probably the most detailed description we have of Seidr. He gives everything. He tells what she does. He speaks about what she wears. And he speaks about the whole ceremony in this saga. So that's a really good one. Gesta Danorum by Saxo Grammaticus also writes about Seidr and details about how the women doing it and how they were regarded and thought of in the general public. Another one with a good account is called Vatnsdæla Saga. And it's also a very detailed description, and in here it actually mentions how Seidr originally was a Sami art and brought to the Norse by the Sami. The Sami was the original inventor. So that is all the main written sources there. Now let's just look at a couple things in the archaeological evidence. The first is the Skien Rune Stone. Here it's a rune stone that marks a burial. It's a woman that writes in the runes, and she's writing for a husband or something that has passed away, and she basically says, "Do not disturb this resting place, or you are a Seid," or a Seid practitioner, saying it like it's an insult or a curse, kind of like a no trespassing sign, really. Another one, archaeological find, one of the main ones is the Ursa Bag Ship. This is probably the biggest and most famous archaeological find in Norway or Scandinavia in general, really, from the Viking Age. This is a huge subject, and I can go into a lot of detail, but I won't do that now. I'll do it in another video. Let's just take a look at the few things quickly that we know about this. There was 2 women buried in there, both dressed in very high quality clothing. There was also a lot of animals in there. I think like 15 horses, something like that, and some dogs and maybe an ox. You had different work items that they would have used, like a sleigh, a cart, some buckets, and agricultural tools. Also, very fine decorated tapestries and other garments, like imported silk and things like that. They had hemp seeds. This is an interesting one because these were probably used for rituals and psychedelic use, as most people agree, and also other ritual items like rattles and a staff. So always in the sagas and in the archaeological finds, the Völva or the Seidr women always had a staff, always accounted for a staff. So that's about it for this. Like I said, I won't go into all the items here and speak about what they mean, but I will in a longer video. Basically, the point is that this burial, the women were very high valued, high status women, and most people believe that they are Seidr practitioners. Some scholars even argue that they were also a queen and a daughter, but we don't know for sure. But on to the next one. Another archaeological find is in Miklibustad in Norway. Lots of graves excavated here, but the one we find Seidr women in is similar to the items we found at the Ursa Bag Ship. So a lot of things here like staffs and tools and things like that, but an interesting thing about this gravesite is a lot of people were cremated here, which is pretty unique in the Old Norse world. We also find a shorter staff in this burial, and also some cauldrons and some other things. Next one is in Klinta, Sweden. The archaeological find there. This one is one of the most interesting, as we find a few women. One had a full-size staff, and one had a mini wand, and they were both made out of iron. And she was also buried with animals and some other ritual objects and carts. Carts too seem to be something that pop up in these. One of the biggest ones here. Next one is the finds at Bjrka in Sweden. At Bjrka, there was a ton of excavations, all kinds of things and people. It was a massive city in the Viking Age, and there were hundreds of graves dug up, but the grave numbers 660, 834, and 845 all had graves that appeared to be Völva or Seidr practitioners. They also had different types of iron staffs and similar ritual and work things, just like the grave sites before that I spoke of. Another one is at Vecca. Same thing, another very high status woman buried here with the same types of things, except this woman actually seemed to have a lot more tools than the others. She had a full toolbox, and she had sickles, hooks, spindles, and things like that. So a lot of the toolkit there. Maybe something you can learn about the tools that Seidr practitioners would have used. Another big one is at Kapang. Same thing, about 70 graves excavated there, but at least one or two of them, or perhaps more, were believed to be Völva. All the same types of items were found as in other graves that I spoke about as well. And I'm actually from not so far from there, just a 10-minute drive, so I've been there many times. The last one that I'll bring up in this video is from Firecut Denmark. This one is maybe the most interesting for me, and it helps prove my theory. A woman buried with all the same things as we see in other sites, staffs and tools and things like that, but she had a purse with Henbane seeds. Now, Henbane is supposed to give hallucinations, and it makes you feel like you are flying, and this is exactly what you would need to get into that trance-like state needed to practice Seidr. I don't know if we actually find any other women buried with seeds like this, but we know for sure that witches later on in time used these plants for this purpose. I'm convinced that the two are related, and Seidr is actually the act of a witch flying on a broom. But if you want to hear my theory about it, exactly that, I'll put that link in the description below. You can click on that and see what you want. That's about it. That's all the sources. Just one more thing before I finish. We do find burials excavated with staffs like this and other things that are believed to be Seidr women in other parts of Europe too. There's more in Scandinavia, and there's also one in Ireland. There's one in the Isle of Man, and there's another in Gnezdovo, Russia. All regions colonized by the Vikings. So these are some more that are believed to be Seidr practitioners. So I've covered about 10 archaeological sites here. These are the ones that are most known and the ones that are believed by scholars that there is a very good chance, they're pretty sure that they were Seidr practitioners or Völva. But there are actually about 40 total graves that scholars believe that might be Völva, judging from things found in the grave. And actually 5 of these are men. So mostly women were Völva for sure, but men too. I think vitki is the word that they use for men, and they were definitely able to practice Seidr too, except it was a much more shameful thing, as we know from the Eddas. Also, a note to make: 40 graves are just what they have found. And that were still buried with their staffs in the archaeological finds. These are almost all iron staffs. When you think about it, there could be many, many more that were buried with wood staffs. They used wood staffs and they were buried with them. But the wood, of course, would decompose after more than 1,000 years most of the time, so we don't know for sure. But we know for sure, we can say that there was probably a lot more than 40 grave finds, but you can look at all those yourself. I'll go into some more of these in another video, but this is about it. I didn't want to get into too much detail about these burials and the sources and talk about any theories, because this video was purely to tell you about all the evidence for Seidr and where you can go and find it yourself if you would like to learn more. So links to more videos will be in the description. I'll be making a lot more soon. That's about it. Vi ses neste gang.